Jolt is a 2021 American action comedy film, directed by Tanya Wexler. From a screenplay by Scott Washa, it stars Kate Beckinsale, Bobby Cannavale, Laverne Cox, Stanley Tucci, and Jai Courtney. It was released on July 23, 2021, by Amazon Studios. Now let's see what happens in the movie. Lindy is a bit extreme young woman, with her mother being a medical drug abuser and her father an alcoholic. It seems to be something that was created in her. Extraordinary destructive, she is identified as a young girl. When someone or anyone did bad things around her, she experiences a range that doctors explained it to be called an intermittent explosive disorder. She was isolated from the world because of how violent she was. After all the tests and all the training, Lindy grew worse, and people seemed to not just get the idea not to piss her off. After finally finding a treatment would be described as barbaric and unusual, however highly effective, where she's able to live in the world as a somewhat normal person. Lindy decides to go on a date and overhears a rude customer that was talking to the valet in front of the restaurant she was entering for a date with Justin. With her vivid visions of violently disciplining the man, she starts to press a button in the palm of her hand to initiate a Volt therapy through her body to keep her from harming anyone based on their own discretions. Meeting a guy by the name of Justin for dinner, Lindy explains that she thought having a date would be good, however she decides isn't going to stay. Justin convinces her to stay by starting a conversation. She goes down the list of all the things that would be considered pet peeves to normal people, however it's a trigger for Lindy. The waitress informs Justin that if Lindy doesn't stay, he would have to give up the table. So she thinks about stabbing the waitress after her rude encounter with Justin. Lindy goes to the bathroom after hearing a woman gossiping in the bathroom stall. While on the phone, she beats her unconscious and then leaves the restaurant because her Volt indicator stops working after overriding it. She takes her indicator to Dr. Ivan Munchin to be fixed, however he tells her that this is supposed to be a temporary fix, and becoming close with someone and loving them, specifically Justin, will help her calm down. However, she doesn't believe him. She contacts Justin to go on a second date. They discuss their past as well as Justin's job. They go back to Lindy's apartment and start to have sex. Justin sees Lindy's voltage therapy electrodes all over her body, so she explains to him what it is. He doesn't seem to care and tells her it's not a big deal and starts to kiss her again, taking her vest off. The next morning, Justin gets Lindy a gift along with breakfast in bed. She opens the gift to see a camera that tells her that it's not too much and her apartment is weird. She tells him that last night is not her, and he asks her to explain her voltage therapy. After explaining she has extreme impulsive control and that she has tried everything to help but nothing has worked, he leaves for work and invites her over for dinner later. Lindy visits to tell Dr. Munchin that his theory worked and that she likes Justin a lot. He insisted that they have a session, however she leaves to take pictures with the camera Justin gets her. Later on, she calls Justin's phone after not hearing from him all day, and Detective Vickers answers. She goes to the police station to sit with Detective Vickers and Detective Nevins, and they mention that Justin was murdered. Lindy replays her time with Justin and she tells Dr. Munchin the Volt isn't working, so he gives her a sedative. Once she comes to, she says she needs to find out who did this to Justin. He tells her to let it go before it gets worse. She calls the detectives to have them leave the precinct so she can look into his murder closer, and she goes to Justin's apartment. Detective Vickers tells her that they found her and Detective Nevin is on the way to stop her, and she's a bit extreme as well. Nevin shoots at Lindy and tells her she's a suspect. She takes Justin's car and escapes. Lindy goes to an entertainment store to talk to someone about hacking Justin's phone and meets Andy, a hacker for the store. She was able to locate that Barry, Justin's boss, who he mentioned before he was murdered, and was the last person to be in contact with him. Finding out where Barry, she goes to an underground fight that she interrupts and tells Barry to tell her who killed Justin. He challenges her to fight his top 3 guys at one time, and of course, she wins. Barry tries to get her killed, however she gets him to tell who killed Justin. Barry tells her Gareth Fizzle had Justin killed, so she electrocutes him with jumper cables. Lindy visits Detective Vickers and asks him about Gareth, however Detective Nevin interrupts and chases Lindy to the nursery and starts throwing babies at her, yelling she trusts her to catch the babies, and flees. Lindy makes her way to Gareth's building, and with his assistance, Delacroix knocks her unconscious. She awakens in a room and her zip tied to a chair. She sees her voltage electrodes vest off and tells him that he shouldn't have removed those. She asks what the drainage system is for, and he tells her it's for good reason. Puts her in a car and she begins to press her palms as if her button was there. Back at Fizzle's building, he tells Delacroix to get rid of Lindy. She tells the driver to let her out of the car and he doesn't, so she grabs him, causing him to crash. She goes to Dr. Munchin to get a new vest and returns to her apartment. She sneaks in her window and notices that some detonator. She leaves, seeing Detective Vickers outside her apartment, and gets in his car. She tells him he can't arrest her because of her condition and he would be safer not to. He explains he go easy on her because she's different and that it has nothing to do with what Nevin says about her being a woman. Her apartment blows up and she leaves. She finds Fizzle. He tells her he is sorry that he killed Justin. He says he is glad he was able to see her before Delacroix hits her in the head again and she's back in the drainage room. He asks her does she know what exsanguinate and then explains what it was while doing so to her. She breaks free and fights him. She turns to ask how does she get to Fidel before hurting him. She then fights off a few guards. After using Delacroix's finger to access where Fizzle was, Lindy learned that Justin wasn't dead but in fact used her as a decoy so he could kill Fizzle. Justin tells her Dr. Mucknan had something to do with everything and that he needs to kill Fizzle. She was only an experiment. She goes after him and he detonates her voltage electrodes which stopped working because she was highly upset. Justin realizes her vest wasn't working and Lindy throws a bag that has a bomb in it and blows up Fizzle's entire lair. Lindy goes to Dr. Munchin to kill him for betraying her and Detective Vickers and Nevin interferes and arrested Dr. Munchin. Lindy returns to her apartment and a woman who resembles one of the doctors from when she was younger tells her through her rage she will learn to target the right people and that humans are the most powerful undetectable weapon before pressing her voltage detonator.